Hi, everybody. My name is Manny Salem. I am the lead developer and founder here at Invoira, and we help small businesses streamline vendor payments. And way before I started doing all this, I worked in the accounting industry. I was a bookkeeper, and this happened more than 12 years ago. And one of the things that I remember most challenging was dealing with vendor payments and accounts payable. The process was paper based. Remember dealing with a lot of invoices and checks. Dealing with vendors was a nightmare. I used to get calls from vendors asking for payment status. At the time, we didn't have a tool that gave us visibility into payments, and that was a nightmare. I did that until I just couldn't do it anymore and decided to switch careers. Eventually, got involved in technology and became a software developer. And I focused my career building e-commerce and payments platforms. So I've been doing that for about 10 years. And the problem is that about one third of small businesses today still struggle to make vendor payments. And the technologies that exist today, they tend to focus on helping larger companies. And so I decided to build a solution, and our solution is Invoira, and we help small businesses streamline their entire vendor payment process. And what we do is that we collect vendor invoices, purchase receipts, we extract data from each document, we leverage AI and machine learning to do that. From there, small businesses can set up invoice approvals, and they can send automated payments to their vendors. And then our platform reconciles every single transaction with their accounting system in real time. Our goal as a company is to build the most efficient and the most cost-effective AP automation solution, and we want to make it accessible to as many small businesses as possible. So here's what the competition looks like. As I mentioned earlier, most companies right now are focusing on helping larger companies, and they're very expensive. And when you look at the tools in the small business space, they have many limitations. And so what we noticed was a big need in the market. There are small businesses that need that extra functionality, but they're not willing to pay that cost that comes with that. So that's the gap that we are addressing. One of the biggest advantages that we have is our simplicity and ease of use. The compliment that we get from our customers the most. But at the same time, we're very powerful. We give you enough functionality to streamline the entire vendor payment process from end to end. During this journey, we identified three different clients: solo entrepreneurs, small accounting teams, and mid-sized, large accounting teams. We charge a monthly subscription fee for each, and we also collect a small transaction fee each time our users pay their vendors. We are in it's a pretty sizable market, but right now we're focused on our beachhead market, and these are independent accounting and bookkeeping firms. There are over 300,000 of them here in the United States, and we're projected to capture a little over 2% of that market within 5 years. Here's what our projections look like. First year, we want to onboard 200 accounting firms. By year 5, we're going to be onboarding 3,800 accounting firms and generating $9.2 million in yearly recurring revenue. We've been in business for about 2 years. So far, we completed our product. Back in November, we launched a pre-launch campaign, collected about 150 emails from interested businesses. And last week, we launched our private beta. And right now, we have 17 accounting firms using our product. Our goal is to really collect as much feedback as possible to continue making improvements to our platform. These are some of the key metrics we collected during our marketing experiments. Our lead to sign up ratio is 10%, cost per acquisition 150, and we were able to achieve that with social media channels. We projected average revenue per user $200 per month, and a lifetime value of $6,665. So right now we're focused on product development and developing our digital marketing strategy. Is what has been working so far, so we want to continue doing that. In the summer, we're going to be launching another campaign, and our goal is to optimize our sales funnel. And we're going to continue optimizing our campaigns as we continue to grow. Right now, we're raising $110,000 to help us with product development, sales, and marketing, and to cover some of the operational costs. And our main goal is to connect with investors who have access and connections in the SaaS, mid-size enterprise space. We would like to learn more about that space. We have the small business space, I would say, covered, but we need some of those connections. And that's my time.
Great. Thanks, Manny. 5 minutes go by very quickly. I know.
Yeah.
I'll start this one. I'll let Chris provide additional comments. Two thoughts that came to mind, Manny, when you were presenting. Well, more than two actually, maybe three or four, but two questions, I guess. But one, I think you did a great job of presenting the problem. I'm not sure. I think you probably could have done a better job of presenting the differentiation or the nature of the issues at play. But the two pieces of feedback I would give you is that it's very difficult to compete on price. That may be one of the competing advantages that you have, but it's very tough to convince an investor to give you money because you're competing on price. To be, that in itself as the point, the reason why you're different, because price is something, and I think it's price, not cost, really, that you're talking about. It's not your intrinsic cost, but your price. Price is something that someone can strategically choose to change and to bring to zero. Some companies charge nothing, and I've invested in companies that lost because big investors or big companies competed with them eventually by bringing the prices to zero. So just think about the issue with that. I think that there's usually more than that. I think you are doing more than that probably. I think you're focusing on the SMB, and you're probably providing other benefits that are useful for them. So price, I'm not saying that that's not a competitive point, but I think that's a difficult thesis to put as an investment thesis. The other one is, I did not hear much about your go-to-market strategy. I saw some charts that talk about your growth and your expectations of growth, but that's not a strategy. That's a set of goals. And so in particular, so I think you need to be a little more specific, and maybe you went too quickly through this. But if you think about this slide, for example, it's titled go-to-market, but a lot of this is about product and building the product rather than go-to-market. And the reason why that is really important in your case is because when the most difficult thing for a business when they're addressing a SMB market is to get to them. It's very tempting and easy to say, all I have to do is convince a guy to give me $20 a month. It's very easy. That's okay to do that once, but to do that millions of times, that is a really difficult problem. So the whole issue of scalability becomes a completely different problem. And an investor needs to understand that. And maybe you're not there yet. I think you're raising only 100K to continue to build a product, but you should definitely start to think about your go-to-market strategy, because in order for you to be successful and to achieve the goals that you have, you're going to have a way to get to the small businesses out there, which it's really difficult. That's the challenge with that approach. You're not going to be able to pay high salaries to a lot of very good salespeople, because that doesn't work with the SMB market. So I'll leave it at that and let Chris add on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the presentation contained, the bulk of the items that we'd want to talk about, right? So I think structurally it was set up very well. I do agree. I really like the idea of how you went, hey, here's the broad competitive set of kind of vendor invoicing solutions, and then let me sort of let me narrow that down and focus on those who are truly in the SMB. So here's the big market, and then here are the people who I'm really kind of competing with. That said, I agree. I think that the next slide, it has it has a lot of data on it, but it'd be great to more visualize. Yeah, I think a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put themselves and then the next competitors, and they'll have a bunch of different like elements of it. So it might be like document extraction, low cost, complexity, whatever it is that you want to highlight. You'd have check marks and the other people wouldn't, right? It helped me visualize some of the elements of the differentiation between those. That said, I do agree that for me, when I look at this, the question that I have, so thinking of Intuit as a good example, which is like, how is it that Intuit, like what would it take for Intuit to just come into your space, right? Are they just missing OCR and the ability to extract from a doc? Because you can probably pull that off GitHub today, and I know that's probably simplifying it, but those things are starting to become commoditized. So how do you get that? And I guess when I was looking at it, I kept thinking, how do you build a moat so that Intuit or Avid or whoever it is that's doing this doesn't come into your sandbox? I don't know if you say like, hey, there's really difficult switching costs, when a business starts leveraging something like this, they don't, it's very difficult for them to move to another system. And I also think that you want to be thinking about, growing faster if that's the case, right? So year 5 to have 3,800 small businesses on there is probably not enough to create kind of a moat, right, against some of these competitors. But I do think, like I say, I do think that there's a lot of the information that we'd ultimately want to look for. You had a 3% churn rate in there. Is that an assumption, and how did you kind of get to that? That's a pretty low churn.
Yeah, that was just an assumption, and we were also looking at similar companies in our space.
Okay, so it does indicate that there's a pretty high level of stickiness once you kind of get onto this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I'd say the last point I'd agree with Lister, which is understanding go to market. Is it purely reliant on Facebook ads for click-throughs to then lead to signups? Is that really the kind of way, or are there other more innovative ways to maybe even aggregate, right, as a distribution, maybe to specific types of small business owners, to kind of go that route? But I think overall, most of the info is in there. I just think maybe it needs to be repackaged a little bit.
One more point on the SMB market, and to the point that Chris was making. I think you basically are targeting every single small business out there. Is that correct?
I was waiting for you guys to finish so I can address.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Please, go ahead.
Yeah. So right now we're focused on where we are now, right? So we have three different types of customers, and right now we're focused on the center, the small accounting teams. And these are independent accounting firms in the United States. So this group of professionals have very specific needs in the market. And you mentioned Intuit and others, but Intuit is already in the market, but they simply give you an option to make a payment on one specific QuickBooks account. But when we talk about accounting firms, they manage multiple accounts. So that's not possible to do on Intuit now. And it's not just managing different accounts. Accounting firms have their specific workflows that they use for their clients. And that's how we are differentiating, by building tools for that specific market. And also, you mentioned growing faster. When you look at our projections here, one accounting firm can bring 10 small business clients. So we don't need that many to even break even. But if we go directly to small business, then we're gonna need even like 100 to reach our break-even point. So with accounting firms, because they bring their small business clients, we are able to do that quickly, and it's much easier.
Awesome. Thanks, Manny. And yeah, we're at about time there. I do want to leave a little bit of time for networking. If you've got any follow-on comments, Lister, Chris, feel free to connect with them here in the chat rooms or afterwards, and I could always facilitate that introduction. If anyone else has a question for any of the pitchers today, feel free to send them in the chat. Manny, there's a comment there for you in the chat if you want to check that out.